Welcome back once again, all of my low carb friends, and for those of you who are here for the first time, welcome. Today I have another very easy keto bread recipe for you. Today I am going to show you how to make super easy keto coconut milk buns. Now if you're not a coconut milk fan, you can use any milk you want in these and it will still taste great. And if you want a printable version of this recipe, you can check out my website at janetsdeliciouslowcarbkitchen.com. You can find a printable version of this recipe and other goodies there for you. And if you're new to the channel and you want to see lots of easy, delicious, low-carb keto recipes, make sure you click that subscribe button and click the notification bell that's right next to the subscribe button. That way you can be notified every time I put out videos, at least every Wednesday and Saturday. And if you'd like to help support the channel, make sure you scroll down in the description of the video. You'll see some affiliate links. Anytime you purchase anything using those affiliate links, a small portion of your purchase will go to me and help support the channel. So, while you do all that, let's get cooking. Preheat your oven to 350 degrees. Lightly grease 7 hamburger bun molds and place them on a baking sheet. If you don't have any hamburger molds, just line a large baking sheet with a silicone mat or some parchment paper. Then you can just freehand the milk buns when we're done mixing everything. Set your baking sheets aside for a minute. In a large mixer bowl, combine 60 grams or around 2/3 cup of bamboo fiber or oat fiber. If you can't find bamboo fiber or oat fiber, you can try this with coconut flour, but if you do, start with half of the amount, which is around 1/3 cup or 30 grams of coconut flour. Then once everything is mixed together, you can add more if you need to until you get the right consistency. Add 60 grams or around 2/3 cup of fine flaxseed meal. You want this to be fine enough to go through a mesh strainer. So I always regrind my flaxseed meal so that it's fine, and then I measure out the 60 grams or 2/3 cup. Add 7 grams or around a half tablespoon of baking powder, 5 grams or around a half tablespoon of instant dry yeast. This is optional. It's mostly for flavor. It does help a little bit with the rise. It's not going to rise a whole lot like you would with a gluten bread, but it does help a little bit with these milk buns to puff up a little bit. But if you do leave the yeast out, it's not going to ruin the milk buns. You'll still have nice fluffy milk buns. Add 18 grams or around 1.5 tablespoons of allulose, or you can use 1 teaspoon of inulin. This is also optional. It just helps bring out the flavor a little bit. It also does help feed the yeast just a little bit. Not the way sugar would, but it does give a little bit of life to the yeast, which gives a little bit of rise to your milk buns. But again, if you leave this out, it's not going to ruin the milk buns. Add a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 2 grams or around a half teaspoon of xanthan gum, or if you don't want to use xanthan gum, you can use about 1 tablespoon of psyllium husk powder, or you can check out my xanthan gum substitute article and try out one of those. But as I always tell you guys, anytime you use any substitutes in any recipe, it may affect the texture and the taste just a little bit. Add 28 grams or around 1/3 cup of egg white protein powder. If you don't want to use egg white protein powder, you can use 4 fresh egg whites, but you're not going to add the fresh egg whites right now. You'll add them when we add our wet ingredients. If you want to, you can add some dry seasonings or dry spices just to give the milk buns a little bit of a different flavor. That's up to you. I'm leaving mine just a neutral flavor. Sift the dry ingredients all together until they're fully combined and there are no lumps in the dry ingredients. Turn your mixer onto low and gradually add 23 milliliters or around 1.5 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. This will not make your bread taste like vinegar. It just helps give your bread a little bit more of a firm texture. Gradually add 130 milliliters or around a half cup of room temperature water. Make sure when you add the vinegar and the water that you do this gradually and just allow it to beat in for a few seconds after each addition until all of your dry ingredients are moist. Now, if you're using fresh egg whites, then you do not need the 130 milliliters or half cup of room temperature water. This is just to revive the egg white powder. But if you're using fresh egg whites, just add your fresh egg whites right now and allow them to beat in really well. Stop your mixer, add 150 milliliters or around 2/3 cup of very hot coconut milk or the milk of your choice. This doesn't have to be boiling, but you do want this very hot. That helps to soften the fibers and results in a more soft, fluffy bread. I use full fat canned coconut milk. I just pour it into a bowl and then I whisk the cream and the water together to create that coconut milk until it's nice and smooth. And then I weigh out my 150 milliliters or 2/3 cup of the milk. And then of course, have to heat it. Make sure it is very hot. Beat everything together on low just until everything starts combining, and then increase your speed to medium low and beat on medium low for around 30 to 45 seconds until everything is smooth and you have a wet, sticky dough. It's actually more the texture of a thick batter than a dough. Told you guys many times before, when we use high fiber flours, wet doughs tend to work better than the dry, thick doughs. If you don't have a standing mixer, you can use a hand mixer, or you can just do this with a wooden spoon. It should mix together fairly easy with a wooden spoon. Scrape down the sides of the bowl and push the dough to the center of your bowl. Then allow it to sit at room temperature for about 15 minutes so it can absorb a good portion of the moisture. After 15 minutes, you're still going to have a wet dough, but it should have absorbed quite a bit of the moisture. And if you're using the yeast, your dough should be a little bit on the puffy side. Use a large ice cream scoop or a 1/4 cup measuring cup and scoop the dough into your prepared molds. If you don't have any molds, just scoop the dough onto your lined baking sheet and make sure you leave space in between each one of the scoops so that the milk buns can expand a little bit. Use a butter knife or a small spatula and just go around the outside of the scoops and just try to smooth it a little bit into more of a round shape. You don't want to press down on the scoops because you want as much of a fluffy air texture in them as you can have, so they'll expand a little bit. You can also scoop these out bigger or smaller depending on how big you want your milk buns once they're done baking. Place them in your preheated oven. Bake at 350 degrees for 25 to 30 minutes or until the milk buns are golden. Once the milk buns are done baking, remove them from the oven and allow them to cool in the molds on the pan for about 10 minutes, just until they're firm and they won't burn your fingers. After about 10 to 15 minutes and the milk buns have firmed up, transfer them to a wire rack and allow them to cool completely before you slice them if you choose to slice them. When you're ready to use the milk buns, you can just leave them as they are and eat them plain or put topping on top of the milk buns. Or you can turn them on their side and slice them down the center and create a top and a bottom of the bun and just put whatever butter or any filling that you want in them. You also can reheat them if you want warm milk buns. Just pop them in the microwave for 10-20 seconds or pop them back in the oven for just a couple minutes, just until they're warm. All right, here we are with my lovely looking milk buns. Aren't they pretty? Smell yummy. I cut one of them in half so you can kind of hopefully see the center of that a little bit. Hopefully you can see that. But see the texture in there? It's got a nice looking little crumb in there. It's got a little crust on top the way it's supposed to have. It's got nice coloring, good texture, so you feel that. You can squish it a little bit without it crumbling or anything like that. Got a nice texture. It does have, when it's cold I should say, it does have that slight little sticky feeling that xanthan gum baked goods pretty much always have. When it's warm, you don't notice it. But when it's cold, you do notice it a little bit. Not horribly nasty, gross, but you do notice a little bit of that sticky xanthan gum texture. If you don't use xanthan gum and you use another binder, then you most likely won't have that, most likely. But that is one of the downsides of xanthan gum. So it wasn't a big deal to me. But anyway, don't think you've ruined your bread if you feel that, because you haven't. Other than that, it has a good texture. It smells really good. That's usually a good sign. So, looks good, smells good. Let's taste this bad boy. That's good. That is very good. That has the taste and texture of quote unquote real bread. Very moist, very nice and soft in the middle. You can use these as dinner rolls, as sandwich rolls. I mean, whatever you want to do with them, you can do with them. Thumbs up. Yes, yes, yes. We are on a roll, doing great with our bread recipes. Thanks to bamboo and oat fiber. Very tasty. You can eat these immediately. If you do have any leftovers, allow them to cool completely and store them in an airtight container at room temperature for up to 3 days, or store them in an airtight container in your refrigerator for up to 1 week, or store them in a freezer-safe airtight container and freeze them for up to 1 month. If you do freeze them, make sure that you keep parchment paper in between each one of the milk buns so they don't stick together. Eat and enjoy. And that's our recipe of the day. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did and you want to see more videos like this, make sure you click that thumbs up like button, click that subscribe button, leave me a comment if you want to. Let me know if there's any recipes that you'd like to learn how to make, and I'll do what I can to get those out there for you. And as always, keep cooking.